So welcome to SEPA-WOC, Southeastern Pennsylvania Women's Ordination Conference. And we have here an image that Marianne Tucker brought to us from the relief on the door of the Duomo in Florence. So we claim this as our icon. And we have throughout the presentation, you'll see dates. We're not going into a big history, but we thought we'd include some of these dates. And we say here founded in 1975, but in actuality, SEPA-WOC predates the Women's Ordination Conference a little bit. We were part of grew out of the Philadelphia Task Force on Women and Religion. And some of the Episcopal members of that group were ordained, as you will recall, as the Philadelphia 11 in 1974. And the Catholic members of that task force affiliated with the St. John's Alliance. And then when the National WOC organization was formed in 75, we organized ourselves as a local branch that is inspired by, but remains independent of National WOC. We are our own 501c3, but of course we love WOC and all that they're doing, and love participating in that. So, so our mission statement here, you have a view of one of our annual witnesses in front of the cathedral on Holy Thursday. Our mission, as women and men rooted in faith, we call for justice, equality, and full partnership in ministry. We are committed to church renewal and to the transformation of a structure which uses gender rather than gifts as its criterion for ministry. So we want a change in that structure. So in the course of our planning this presentation, there was a bit of discussion about who are we, our identity. And I think that part of our discovery is that we're more than an organization. We're more than just a committee or interest group. We're more than a regional affiliation with WOC. We are actually a community. We are a faith community. And that was a bit of discovery, I think, in our conversation. We're a community of intention. We are committed to a church where all gifts and talents are recognized and accepted. And we are also committed to activism on behalf of the change of that structure. We also gather in celebrations. We sometimes have our own prayer together, whether it's at a retreat, our meetings, our celebrations that we prepare in front of the cathedral on Holy Thursday. So we do our own celebrations, but we're also, each of us, part of communities of worship and celebration. And we bring the richness of those experiences into the community of SEPA-WOC. We're a learning community. We're always growing and deepening on the issues. So the issues, the way we saw them in 1975, are very different than the way we see the issues now. In fact, we may not even just be about women's ordination any longer, as we see the integration, the intersection of so many of our concerns. And we're also a community of mutual support. We journey as friends. We share needs, questions, challenges. So in all of that, I think we discovered that we are a faith community, much as Women's Church envisioned it, I think, originally, that there are these spaces that are not just for women, but for women and men who are coming together to celebrate the faith, live the gospel, and they take many forms. So we are our own faith community space. As part of this work of SEPA-WOC, we do any number of things. Some of us are, as I said, in various Eucharistic communities and provide leadership in those communities. We have our famous publication, which I think many of you receive, which is Equal Rights. We're very proud of that work. We have our witnesses, both in front of the cathedral and at other places and times, on behalf of a renewed church. We engage in advocacy and service with some of your organizations and others locally. And we see ourselves as doing the work through networking and collaboration. So it's sort of a snapshot of how we conceive of ourselves at this moment of time, looking back, looking at our present, and then how we continue to work into the future. Now, I think Judy is going to share some of the activity of.
Yes, these are the public kinds of things that we're known for in Philadelphia. After the Vatican Declaration was promulgated in 1976, declaring that women could not be ordained because we do not bear a natural resemblance to Jesus, National WOC requested that WOC members around the country have a prayer service witness in every cathedral in every diocese possible. The response in Philadelphia, but also in every other diocese, was a polite no by the diocesan leaders. Later, we came to believe that just because we could not pray and witness inside the cathedral did not mean we couldn't witness outside the cathedral. So on the Diocesan Ordination Day in 1980, SEPA-WOC had our first public witness. There were 10 of us, ages 8 to 65. We sang and prayed and held one banner, which is in that picture on the right. Remember your sisters who are ready and willing to be ordained. The next year, we switched our witness to the Chrism Mass on Holy Thursday, when at least one priest from every parish would be there to see us in living color, that we are real people who support the call of women to full equality in the Catholic Church. After a few years, at Regina's insistence, we expanded our witness to both Holy Thursday and Ordination Day, and we later added a liturgy to our witness on Ordination Day, as well as adding, as you can see in the bottom right, our Mary Magdalene Awards ceremony, which is a yearly award to someone dedicated to courageously moving the equality of women in the Catholic Church forward. Every year for 42 years, on my way to our Holy Thursday witness, I say to myself, I cannot do this again. And after our wondrous gathering, I think, I can't not do this. And I would just like to share one observation before I close. At the first witness, where the 8 people were, 10 people were, there was a formal outdoor procession of seminarians, diocesan priests, religious order priests, those being ordained, all the bishops and the cardinal. And there we were across the street, big as life. And every year since that ordination day, for 42 years, there has never been an outdoor procession by the religious clergy on Ordination Day again. To paraphrase Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed, caring witnesses can change the church, even in Philadelphia.
Thanks, Rudy. I'm actually, oh, right, we're shifting to Eileen to talk about another area of activity that we engage in. Eileen there?
I forgot to unmute myself. As I was sitting before my computer before I logged on, I was thinking of something my late father used to say. He was very small in stature, and he used to say, while I might be small, I am mighty. So I would like to think of SEPA-WOC as we might be a very small group, but as you can see from these publications, we surely are mighty. our newspaper, our Catholic feminist newsletter has been in existence for 30 years. And the small group of us are regular contributors. Like we might have guest columnists that come on occasionally, but it's the group that puts that magazine together, more specifically, Mary Whalen and Ellie Hardy. So that comes out 4 times a year. And if you do subscribe to it, I think you find it pretty informative. You have Marion Ronan there, who is a longtime member of SEPA-WOC with her book, Sister Trouble. And I believe Marion has written other books as well. To your left is my book called How to Keep Your Parish Alive, which I wanted to have it named When Your Bishop Declares It Dead, but my editor didn't agree with that. So I have to tell you, I just yesterday got a check for royalties. It was $65.
Yay, Eileen.
So anyway, this book essentially gives people a rationale of how, if their bishop declares their parish dead, how you just reform, in a resurrected body parish, and you set your own leadership and grow organically. So that my book is a step-by-step justification and a handbook of how to form your own communities. And I'm currently working on a new book called Taking Out the Saints, where I review saints throughout history and essentially remove them and substitute them with other saints. So that has been a long slog, and I still have probably another 6 or 7 months before I can get that together for publication. The table, if you read the table, the columns by Ellie Hardy and Regina Bannon, I don't think that you could get better, no offense, Kate, I don't think you could get better columns in NCR. Every time that I read them, I'm just transported by the breadth and the depth of their reflections on the church and on life itself. So that's our little group, our small but mighty group, spreading the good news.
Right. Thanks, Eileen. And we'll head back to Judy and Eileen both to talk a little bit about the communities that inspire our continued work.
This screen shows some of the communities to which SEPA-WOC members belong, and also members their members support SEPA-WOC in many various wonderful ways. Let me mention CCS, which is up top in the middle, those 2 pictures. CCS, the Community of the Christian Spirit, began in the late 60s and early 70s. People were invited by a local religious order of sisters to come and learn and live and rejoice in and celebrate Vatican II and the renewal of the church, to help understand diverse communities and beautiful, meaningful liturgy and music. The community lived the spirit of Vatican II and began moving forward to Vatican III, eventually becoming an intentional Eucharistic community. And some of the ways they move forward to Vatican II is they welcomed the active ministry of married priests as leaders and celebrants, and they called a woman to ordain ministry in 1980. Another photo in the bottom left is from Philadelphia Dignity. We have supported each other, and in fact, when SEPA-WOC wanted to have a conference in the 1990s about the women's pastoral, we couldn't afford the donation to the local college we asked to use, and Dignity Philadelphia made us the beneficiary of their 50-50, and the conference went on and was grand. Eileen?
So the two pictures on the right are outgrowths of SEPA-WOC, and I often like to say that the 2 groups, the top one is the community that Kathy Shuck and I are priests, along with another priest, Carol Conroy Johnson. The bottom is Sanctuary of Peace, and neither of those communities would ever have existed without SEPA-WOC. They would not have existed without the leadership that they provided to those of us who sought ordination through Roman Catholic women priests, the support, the inspiration, just I was talking to Patricia. We were on a tea for Patricia Friesen, who is retiring from RCWP as a bishop, and the links that drew us all together are just so amazing. I read about Patricia in NCR, and then she came to Philadelphia to one of WOC's conferences in 2005, and then introduced the women priest movement to us. So without, National WOC, SEPA-WOC, none of this would have been in existence. So the community of St. Mary Magdalene was established in 2007. And we meet every single Sunday, usually in a hybrid service on both Zoom and in person. And there you see one of our hybrid services at our anniversary, which we had not yet moved back into our parish. The one below, into our building rather. The one below is Sanctuary of Peace, which also grew out of my ordination. I was ordained in 2006, and that group meets, I think, twice a week. Mary Whalen, I believe, is a part of that, with a rotating leadership. And so I would say that the idea of leadership, that again, I think was inspired by the egalitarian nature of SEPA-WOC, is that while there might be priests, the liturgy is the work of the people. So what you don't see over to your left, where which is the picture of the mass that we had at WOW in 2015. In the parishes, the Eucharistic ministers are the ones that say the offertory prayer. They hold up the gifts. They stand with the priests during the consecration. The entire community prays the Eucharistic prayer together. We all pray. We all extend our hands, and we all pray the words of institution together. Because I don't know if I already said, liturgy is the work of the people. So I really want to make that very clear. That this is not an organization that prizes any sort that prizes ordination as some sort of thing that sets people apart. We've been on this earth too long to actually believe in that mood. So I think that is all I wanted to. Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that our group, and I think other groups, are also involved in ecumenical services. So the community of St. Mary Magdalene participates pre-COVID in 3 services with our host United Methodist Church and a local Lutheran community. So we celebrate Thanksgiving, Ash Wednesday, and Holy Thursday together. And Holy Thursday is actually a joint Eucharist. And as I like to say, I don't think anybody anywhere in the Philadelphia area engages in a joint Eucharist with ministers of different communities. And interestingly, this coming Sunday, I'm preaching and presiding at my son's Presbyterian church in Baltimore. Their pastor is out on maternity leave, and they have supply pastors. So for me, the ecumenical tendency of our group is, along with the egalitarian, is very important. And again, none of that would have happened except for SEPA-WOC. So we certainly are all connected.
Thanks, Eileen. We mentioned that we engage in advocacy and service, and I thought something Eileen said reminded me that I wanted to mention, reinforcing what she said, is that among us, we have 3 ordained women in our core committee. And we also have another whole diversity of gifts. We are leaders, community organizers, educators, writers. So among us, we have a lot of skills and gifts that we bring to this work and this commitment. Among these, a number of services we provide, some of you already know that SEPA-WOC members are on several boards and committees with others of you. The Catholics Organized for Renewal, Regina and Ellie do a lot of representation for our group there. The Women's Ordination Conference, and I know you're very familiar with Regina's leadership and involvement there, as well as Women's Church and Marge's commitment, but also as programs have come up through the years, we have actively tried to support your efforts, especially as we can work that out at a local level as appropriate to our situation. We engage in different initiatives that sometimes emerge out of our annual planning retreats, and the most recent one was a little bit of a stretching for us. We decided that having had a response to a letter from Mary Whalen welcoming Bishop and an invitation to speak with us, he's the only bishop who, after many letters to previous archbishops, actually said he couldn't talk about women's ordination, but he would talk with anyone. And so if we felt that we were willing to speak on other matters other than women's ordination, we could schedule an appointment. And so in fact, we did. And our approach to that conversation was to share our experiences as Catholic women struggling with the church's position around women's roles, gender issues. And so Regina and I met with the Archbishop. We won't go into a lot of detail there. You can read a report of our meeting with the Archbishop in a previous equal rights issue. And we sent that article on our experience back to him in case he was interested in how we experienced that conversation. We got no response, and we have no idea what he thought of our article. It was an interesting exercise. It was not very encouraging. We wouldn't even really say it was a conversation. I think we felt that we were speaking past each other, but it was an effort that we took seriously. And I think we learned a lot by accepting that outreach piece of work. We also, before COVID, were speaking at a number of different engagements with colleges and groups. So we were trying to provide that service. We, when asked and when things come up, we like to be of service. So when WOW, the Women's Ordination Worldwide Conference, was here, we provided a local hosting for that. We've engaged in the billboard campaigns. And of course, you see Judy's lovely countenance shining from the most recent billboard that is being promoted. And as other issues come up, for instance, Nun Justice, the Women's March, we have engaged in actions locally to support those efforts. You actually see in the bottom right, it was a very hard image to make present for this presentation, but it was the original billboard in 2001. If you're waiting for a sign from God, ordain women. So we continue to support those kinds of efforts. Judy, do you want to talk about some of the forums you've been a part of?
These are little pamphlets from some of our forums I wanted to share with you. On May 3rd, 2003, SEPA-WOC responded to the invitation of National WOC and sponsored a US tour of the Danube 7. And SEPA-WOC in Philadelphia had a full day conference, keynotes, lunch, workshops. We had a glorious liturgy of a lifetime, a liturgy of a lifetime, really. We shared dinner, we had music, and it was such a beautiful life experience that to this day, we call May 3rd, 2003, our grand event. In 2005, SEPA-WOC, at the invitation of National WOC, hosted the 30th anniversary. It too was a glorious celebration of the Women's Ordination Conference, a real wondrous sharing of memories, of keynotes, of discussions, of dialogue, of visions, and again, another deeply beautiful liturgy. We invited people to come here, or we co-sponsored visits by and conferences with Roy Bourgeois, Asia Taylor, Jamie Mason, Carol Zinn. We invited international people and co-sponsored Bishop Patricia Friesen, Helmut Schuler, Tony Flannery, Marie Collins. And in fact, in looking at the people in this, at this meeting today, I think of when Dolly Pomeroy traveled up on the train in 1978 before the Baltimore Second Women's Ordination Conference and explained to us and worked with us about the dreams and hopes of National WOC. I see Mary and Diane, who came to one of our day-long retreat and planning and celebration sessions. And I am reminded that there were so many national and international people that came here who work for equality and justice, who stand up, speak out, and speak for. And I think of even our local Philadelphians of Janine Gramick and Bob Nugent, and Janine met with us personally and in groups during this time, during the time of our founding. So I also want to add that in the Philadelphia area, venues were provided by interdenominational and interfaith people who are true and faithful supporters of our vision. Some venues were in fact held at Catholic places because of the courage of a very few.
Thanks, Judy. I'm aware of time, so I think this is fairly self-evident. None of this can happen without the committed core committee, which currently consists of 12 of us. And, you know, the website and listserv is another piece of our communications activity. We do have annual planning retreats. We have those who maintain our finances, and we have a membership, those who receive equal rights. We consider them on our list. And I think maybe Regina can confirm that our largest mailing of equal rights goes to about 3,000 when it's a full
1,000.
1,000. Oh, well, see, I'm so optimistic.
Yes, and I'm so honest.
Right, right. Thanks, Regina. So this is all our engagement as the core committee. We have done quite a bit of networking and collaboration with many of you. Marge, did you, as our Women Church representative, did you want to say anything about this, or?
I would like to leave this to Regina if she doesn't mind, because she's the one who's actually in contact with all these different organizations.
Thanks.
Regina?
Well, and you do the Women Church Convergence, as this
Yes.
group knows. And I just wanted to mention now, currently, Kathy Shook is the representative from WOC, National WOC, to the Women's Ordination worldwide. So the other things I was going to mention were my own representation on the Catholic Organizations for Renewal. But I have been president of WOC, Marion Ronan has been president of WOC, and Ellie and I, as has been mentioned, do the table for National WOC. So
All networking, all collaboration, all over.
Right. Okay.
And could I jump in here? I especially want to give thanks for Kate. Through the years, we had wonderful WOC directors and presidents and boards, but we are just so inspired by Kate and the young people that came along. But we really, really give thanks for you, Kate, and we really follow your lead. And I just wish I could think on my feet as well as you do.
Amen. Oh, sorry. This is just a little collage, just more color, pictures of variety of activities, witnesses in front of the cathedral, Marianne and Tom receiving their Mary Magdalene Award. Of course, Judy's leadership was recognized at the WOW conference. Here we are masked for our latest protest. One of the Mary Magdalene community liturgies. And I just threw this in because I love this picture of Kathy Schuck. I think it says so much about the openness of this movement. And here's some other just fun pictures. This old one in front of the seminary, I just love, so I had to put it in there, from 2002. One important fun fact I think to recognize now is St. Charles Borromeo Seminary has been sold. So they are gone at this location, but we are still around. They are much reduced and are taking up the seminary on a space at one of the local Catholic colleges. This is our forum on nun justice. Here you have some stalwarts out there in the rain. And we have Kathy representing us in Rome with Kate. Now, this one I just threw in because I have to say that I continue to find this picture very funny, and that these banners continue to have a great showing nationally and internationally. They were intended as a one-off, one theme banner for one of our Holy Thursday witnesses. This is my daughter who worked with myself to create them, and they've taken on a life of their own. So I just thought it was fun. It was a fun effort. It's fun to see them. And I would think that at some point we need to update the message and have some new banners. But anyway, I think they've been fun that they've been around. One of the things that we came to in our final discussion for this, if we have time for discussion, we recognized that there were things about what we had been doing that were working, that we appreciated. And one of them was our hitting the streets and showing up. It's one of the strengths of SEPA-WOC, our persistence, that we work at building community, that we have tried to bring in new people. And when new people come into our circle, it brings new energy, new ideas, and that we recognize that we have been a stepping stone. Now, Marge mentioned that we were meant to close with some challenges, and I think we share some of these challenges with many of your organizations. These questions are not new, but this is what we find ourselves asking: how to sustain our energy and involvement in order to bring a new generation forward? How do we extend the invitation to join us in the struggle? And I think here, I found myself thinking about the work for justice. And as many people dismiss religion and step away from organized religion, I think that we have a responsibility and a role in showing how you can walk away from religion, but religion has such a crucial role in the culture in terms of perpetuating inequalities, providing the mythos that maintains hierarchies and inequalities, that religion is not irrelevant in the work for justice. And I think many younger generations may not appreciate the role of religion. So anyway, I just felt I was thinking about that. And the other question is how to walk with the younger generation, searching for a more inclusive church. And perhaps that could be rephrased into searching for a more inclusive and life-giving spirituality. Because as younger generations, and the concept of church may have become less relevant. And I wonder if it's not a challenge for us to think about being in the spaces where they are in their spiritual search. So there are things that we wanted to throw out, and I recognize the time, and if you have other things that you're meeting about, but maybe Catherine can confirm, or someone from Women's Church, how much time you'd like to give to any discussion.
Does
Or if anyone has any comments in general.
anyone have comments or questions, please feel free.
This is Kate. I just wanted to say quickly that it's like my heart is exploding with love and gratitude for all of the work of SEPA-WOC and the even the way you've woven together the different threads in this presentation is a model for all of us, I think. And it's just an honor for me to do this justice work alongside each of you, and I consider you all mentors and friends, and it's just, my heart is so full. So thank you.
Thank you. Could you go back to the gallery screen, please?
Thank you. Let me escape here. And let me stop sharing.
Hi, everybody. Any questions, any thoughts you could contribute?
This is Diane. I am just filled with gratitude. You people who have kept church, spirituality, hope alive. Thank you, because you've done it. You're doing it, and you've shared it with all of us. It's a collaboration beyond the collaboration. I mean, if anything survives, it's because of the intentional communities like you that keep that spark of the spirit alive. We'll never know. We don't know how history will be written, but you've just written your history. If our invitation helped you put together the slides that you did, wow, that's an incredible collaboration, because we need these stories to be kept alive, because only you and we can pass them on to the next generations. So I don't know how this will get captured. I know Women Church puts it up on our website, but it's got to go much bigger than that. I don't know where you're going to go with it, but preserve it. And not only preserve this, but your history. Where are your archives? And if they're nowhere, talk to Mary Hunt, who knows everything about archives, because this needs to be preserved. This
They're at the women.
is the documentation of the New Testament and the Old Testament history of the church. Anyway, thank you.
There's the Women in Religion Archive at Temple University, and that's where our records are.
Perfect.
Also CCS records are
Perfect.
there.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This has been terrific. Any other comments?
I'd like to just express my deep appreciation and wonder at this marvelous work. And I've been reading it and seeing it and experiencing it over the years, but to have it brought together in this kind of package, as it were, and shared with us is really a wonderful gift from you, and I really appreciate it. I also think that with Diane, I had my little list of questions here, Diane, and one of them was, where are your archives? And so that does make me sleep better tonight to know that they're someplace. It's really important, because it doesn't matter where they are now. It just matters that they are someplace, because everything's going to be digitalized, and we'll be able to get them. But I also wanted to reinforce what Maureen said in the last part of what you said, Maureen, in terms of young people. And I think you're absolutely on the money, that because I stumbled over that when I was reading the slide, and I thought, it's not that they want a more inclusive church. We don't know what they want, but they certainly ought to be able to have what is most suitable to their spirituality in their time, as we tried to make something more suitable to our spirituality when we were, many of us were much younger. And so facilitating that, I think, is really a wonderful task, not only for you, but for all of us in Women Church Convergence. So just to reiterate my thanks, and looking forward to much more collaboration with all of you. But thank you very deeply.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen and Judy and Eileen, for the presentation, and for everybody putting it together. Now I'd like to go to just Women Church, if I may, and say, is there any business for Women Church other than what's coming up? How do we go out to, as we spoke, as Mary and Diane and others spoke, I wondered, to get young people of college age, not necessarily that they're in college, but how do you invite them to a celebration of the Eucharist and not call it church, but get them to come? Like the Mary Magdalene community or the other communities, how do we get them to come?
This is Carolyn. I'm from a critical mass women celebrating Eucharist. And we've been in existence for, over 30 years. And we are now aging out. Nobody's died yet, but we're close to it. And we have tried over the years to pull young people in. And sometimes we were successful, but they need to, I think that for us in particular, we no longer do public liturgies. We have a house church now. And it's hybrid. Well, we're all on Zoom now. We're all over the world. Somebody's in Ireland and some are in the state of Washington. But the thing is what we do and what feeds us does not feed the young ones. And whatever they need, they're going to need to do on their own, because what we do is not suited to them. And that's, we're a pretty small group, but over the years, that's what we've come to. So these young folks are going to have to form their own, and I don't know if they even want to. I have a gajillion grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and do any of them go to church of any kind or do anything? No.
No. And I would agree with Carolyn. Our community of St. Mary Magdalene, which is probably between Zoom and in person, where we could be like 70, 75 people. We're almost all old. We have maybe 2 or 3 people who might be in their late 30s, early 40s. What do you think, Kathy? Just Chantel and Mara and Allison. And then we have a few Europeans who are young women from Poland who join us. I look at that and I have to agree with Carolyn. I mean, the Catholic Church, the way it's set up now, the younger people just are not interested necessarily in the Eucharist. What I find is they're interested in justice and social justice, in forming communities that may not have a religious base. Like, so I have 4 children, and my son and my daughter belong to this Presbyterian church in Baltimore, which has been led by young women. And it's the community that draws them in. And, they started a scout troop. And so they're more interested in those type of things that foster the general welfare. And I'm sure they have their own spirituality, although they wouldn't talk about that with me. And another one of my children is on the school board. He's a committee person, and he's a scout leader. And I see that, and my kids are certainly not the blueprint for the rest of the world, but they're more interested in action than they are in coming to church and saying, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ. Like, that makes no sense to them. I mean, we don't say that at Mass either, but I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. Can I can't see everyone, I'm sorry. This is Regina. One of the things that occurs to me.
Let me call you back. I'm on a Zoom meeting.
Is that just even in what Eileen said, it's led by young women. I think if we had a program visiting seminaries, I've just written 2 recommendations, one for BC and one for Union. And, the young women who are pursuing ministerial education, that's where Judy came from. Eileen came from the Lutheran seminary. That's the next generation. And they may not organize in the same way that we do, but I think that we could learn from them where they are and what they want to do and how we could support them going forward. So I think as much as we want to believe in the values of community and, all working together, I think that what actually makes things happen is leadership. And that's the group we have to cultivate. And I'm sure Mary and Diane are in touch with a lot of women who have sought out Water's resources. WOC and Water both have had lots of interns. I think what they're doing now would be of interest to all of us. Amen, as someone says
Diane?
after our lineage.
Diane?
I want to ditto Regina and ditto Eileen and just say there's something about belonging that I think we need to remember. And I give the story of our daughter who was baptized in Sanibel Island water by the Women's Church Convergence, that our friend who has since died, Tony Krisak, who Mary and I were in seminary with together, when he talked about, well, tell me about men's baptism. Well, the first baptism, Mary threw water on her when she was having a seizure. And that is what Tony, the director of liturgy to the bishops' conference, said was her official baptism. But then the women's church, her first communion was in our local women's church group, SAS. And SAS is online, and Min jumps online from Philadelphia. She's at Gwen at Mercy just to say hello to people. And sometimes she'll stay on longer, sometimes she won't. That's about belonging. It's about roots. It's about where do you come from? Who are your people? We can give that to any generation at any time. And I hold on to that. Because I think that's an important way of being community and being spiritual. As we go through this, how do we create a base like we've known? But that may not be what's going to keep going forward.
Kathy?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot. I have a 25-year-old daughter, who accompanied me through my discernment and formation process. After my ordination, she said, Mom, I don't get it, because the church you're a part of, although at an extreme end of it, is the same church that I've grown up with. And, we've seen what's happened in the local parish. We've seen what's happened on the international stage. It just doesn't work for me. It's not credible. And so probably since she was in high school, her experience of community has been wing night at PJ Willihan's. And I think if we could somehow find a way to foster that sense of being a part of, as children come of age, that they get that, and they get that sense of community that is so critical, and that I think we all have at the core a real need for.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Maybe it's yoga. I don't know. I mean, I look at what she's doing now as a young professional. She lives in Baltimore. It's as people manage working remotely through the pandemic, what she gets excited about is, at the building that I live in, they have a gym, and now I'm taking a cycling class. We're doing Pilates. It's that same sense of a few of us who are isolated come together and connect in something that's life-giving.
I think that there are my daughter and I were talking about this yesterday. She's 40, grew up in an alternative church, grew up with my experiences in the Grail, as did my other 3 daughters. They're all searching, and they're all very reflective young women, and they're all leaders. And what she was communicating, she said, and she's on a board of a local retreat center. She was invited to be on a program committee. And she says, the language is not our language. The suggestions that we have, the things that we're interested in doing, there's not an openness to hear. But she doesn't know where else to go. She also longs for community. She longs to be with her peers who appreciate ritual, as I call it ritual. She may not call it that, but that deep connection beyond the cycling class, beyond the Super Bowl game. So there are young people who have experienced those roots. Certainly all of the children in this community, right, have experienced an alternative way of being church. That has to do with community. It has to do with meal sharing. It has to do with being able to articulate questions about justice, about what makes my life important. How am I giving to the world in a positive way? What is my place? These are all things that I think younger people are asking, men and women. And perhaps they're finding this community in the justice work that they're doing. That's where they're able to raise these questions. But I think the gift that we can bring from our generation is how to ask those in a community setting where they can hear each other. I don't think they see the structure for that yet, but they're finding it in online movements. I mean, what my daughter said to me is people don't like to hear about the gifts of digital engagement. Certainly WOC is doing so much on that. I mean, I think what you've been doing there, is really wonderful, because it gives us things that we can send to our daughters and say, look at this, be part of this, hold up a sign on a selfie. These are things that are very practical. It's a language that we can speak with our daughters. But my daughter said there are whole movements that are happening quickly online that are changing the conversation. And it's valid. But where is it going? She doesn't know. So I just raised that as there's life, and there's activity, there's community, there's interest, but we may not be in the same spaces.
So I think part of our challenge is finding out how to connect with their spaces and how to speak and get used to and learn their language, not presented in the tried and true formation of the 1950s. Sometimes that's the only language I know. So we have to learn to listen to our nephews and nieces and children and grandchildren. And that's how I learned to use the internet, listening to what they were doing, how I got my iPhone. Anything else? This has been terrific. This has been a wonderful thing. And I look forward to next month's call. I think Mary Grace is on the next month, her group. If there's anything else, please send it to me by email and I'll put it on the agenda. Thank you so much for everything. And the SEPA-WOC group are fantastic.
Oh,
sorry?
Catherine wanted to say something.
Yeah, a thought is understanding their language and maybe showing up where they are. So it's more of an alongside them thing, because why would they want to come join something that doesn't look like them at all? Mm-hmm. But there are probably ways to connect and build relationships. So that's kind of my addition. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Then I'm going to say goodbye till next time, and thank you, everyone. It's been wonderful to have everybody on the call.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.